All right, everybody, welcome back. We are diving deep today, and we're going to be looking at,
marketing and culture.
marketing and culture.
Two sides of the same coin, really.
Yeah, and we've got this really fascinating document exploring the nuances of marketing and culture.
Oh, it's a good one.
Yeah, it really is. And, it's so interesting because when you start thinking about it, you realize that marketing and culture,
They're everywhere.
yeah, like we are surrounded by it.
Yeah, you can't escape it.
No, you really can't. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting that this document brings up is this whole idea of cultural sensitivity and how, sometimes I see a campaign and I think to myself, I wonder if they really thought about how this was going to play in different parts of the world.
Yeah, different cultural contexts.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's the thing. What flies in one culture might totally bomb in another.
Right.
And it's not even just about, avoiding offense,
Right.
Like, sometimes it's more about just genuinely understanding
The value.
the values, the beliefs, even the humor
Yeah.
of your target audience.
Yeah, like something that, in one culture might be seen as, funny or quirky could be totally misinterpreted in another.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like, you could have a campaign that's really focused on, individual achievement and, standing out from the crowd. And that might really work well in a Western culture.
Right.
But in a culture that's more, community oriented,
Yeah.
where it's more about, harmony and,
Yeah.
kind of fitting in that same message, could totally fall flat.
It just wouldn't resonate.
It just wouldn't resonate.
Yeah, and it could even be, offensive or just, make people feel like you don't understand them.
Exactly.
And it makes me think about this whole thing a few years back where this one fashion brand, they used all this religious imagery in their campaign.
Oh, yeah.
And it sparked this huge controversy internationally.
Oh, yeah.
And it was clearly a case of just not doing their homework.
Right.
Not understanding the culture that they were trying to market to.
And the consequences of that go way beyond just bad PR.
Right.
You're talking about alienating potential customers.
Yeah.
And really damaging your brand's reputation.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah.
So how do brands avoid these pitfalls? What are some of the things that they can do?
Well, one of the big things that they talk about in this document is leveraging local trends.
Okay. Yeah.
So, think about it. Trends are kind of like a window into what people are interested in, what they're talking about, what's
hot?
Yeah, what's making them tick.
Yeah.
And so if you can tap into those local nuances, whether it's a popular meme, a social media challenge, or even just a local slang term,
Right.
it can really help brands connect with their audience in a way that feels a lot more authentic
For sure.
and relevant.
It's like speaking their language.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm thinking about this bakery
Okay.
in this small town,
Mhm.
and they created all these hilarious bread sculptures based on this popular internet meme.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was so funny, and they totally captured the zeitgeist, and people were lining up around the block to get these bread sculptures.
Great, because it wasn't just about the bread. It was
Yeah.
about tapping into something that was already resonating with people
Yes.
on a cultural level.
Yes, and it created this sense of community too.
Yeah.
Because people were sharing it and talking about it.
Exactly.
And it just blew it. So so we've talked about sensitivity and trends.
Mhm.
But this document also goes into this idea of storytelling with cultural context.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so think about all the stories that we grew up with, the myths, the folk tales, the historical narratives.
The fairy tales?
Yeah, the fairy tales, all of these stories, they shape our worldview. They shape our values, our sense of identity.
Totally.
And so when brands can kind of weave these familiar elements into their marketing, it creates this instant connection.
Like you're speaking a shared language.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a shorthand. You don't have to explain everything because there's already this shared understanding.
Right, right. So it's not just about slapping on a few superficial cultural references.
Yeah, exactly.
It's about really understanding and integrating it into your brand.
Yeah, it's about finding those universal truths that resonate across cultures, but expressing them through a lens that feels familiar and authentic.
To that specific audience.
To that specific audience, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm thinking about this recent ad campaign for a travel app. And they used this really stunning animation that was inspired by traditional shadow puppetry from this specific region.
Cool.
It was so visually captivating, and it also paid homage to this local art form.
Yeah, that's awesome. They took something familiar and elevated it, and created something that was both beautiful and culturally relevant.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so now this document also gets into something that's been a really hot topic in marketing lately, and that's this whole need for diversity in marketing teams.
Yes.
Why is this so crucial?
Well, I mean, it's pretty simple if you want to connect with diverse audiences.
Yeah.
You need diverse voices behind the scenes.
Right.
Having people from different backgrounds, different cultures, different lived experiences on your team, it just brings this richness of perspective that you just can't get otherwise.
And it's not just about ticking boxes.
No.
It's about having people who can say, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah.
This might not land the way you think it will with this particular community.
Exactly. It's about having those people in the room to challenge assumptions,
Right.
to offer different perspectives.
Yeah.
And, it goes beyond just avoiding gaffes, too.
Okay.
Like, diverse teams are more creative, they're more innovative,
Interesting.
and ultimately they're more effective at reaching a wider range of consumers.
Because they have that lived experience?
Exactly. They have that lived experience, and they can bring those insights to the table.
Makes sense.
And, plus consumers are demanding authenticity.
Yes.
Like, they can smell a marketing ploy a mile away.
Oh, for sure.
They want to see brands that genuinely reflect the diversity of the world we live in.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
it makes me think about that sportswear company that featured a Paralympic athlete in their campaign a few years back.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just about showing diversity. It was about celebrating this athlete's incredible achievements and challenging perceptions of what's possible.
Right. And it worked.
Yeah.
It resonated with people because it felt real.
It felt authentic.
It felt authentic.
Yeah. Okay, so last but not least, this document really emphasizes the importance of staying on top of social changes and utilizing user-generated content.
Right?
This seems like a real challenge for brands.
It is.
How do you keep up with the constant shifts in culture?
Yeah. I mean, culture is not static. It's constantly evolving, especially in our digital age.
It moves so fast.
Yeah. And so brands really need to be active listeners. They need to be paying attention to the conversations that are happening online. They need to be understanding the issues that are important to their target audience. And they need to be willing to adapt their messaging accordingly.
So it sounds like it's about more than just jumping on the latest trending hashtag.
It is.
It's about genuine engagement and understanding.
Yeah, it's about being a part of the conversation, not just trying to exploit it.
Right, and that's where user-generated content comes in.
Yes.
It's like a gold mine for brands.
It is, because it's authentic, it's relatable, and it shows that you're listening to your customers.
Right. It shows that you value their voices.
Exactly.
And I'm thinking about that campaign that went viral a few years ago, where a cosmetics company asked their customers to share their real beauty stories and photos.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a celebration of individuality and self-acceptance.
Yeah.
And it totally took off.
It did.
Because it felt real and relatable.
Exactly. And they tapped into this really powerful cultural conversation about beauty standards and self-image.
Yes.
Exactly.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive.
I know. It's fascinating.
It